Welcome to Cheesehead TV and the road to the 2026 NFL Draft with your host, Newt Westen. Welcome in, guys, on this Monday. Hopefully, you have started to, in your own ways, cope with the tragedy that was the weekend. I know that I'm still kind of in a little bit of shock and awe at how that whole game ended, but not to just dwell on the past and kind of sit there. But I think everyone needs to acknowledge that still that is a Packer fan. But today we're going to get into with the setting of what the Packers now off season looks like. Mock draft. And I think that's going to be kind of a continuation thing that we do here, especially on our draft content, is look for some mock draft Mondays with various simulators, maybe some different twists on there. Today, we're going to start right off with a pretty straightforward layout. We're going to be using today PFF's mock draft simulator. Love it or hate it. I know that PFF always evokes strong feelings from people. But this is the one we'll start with. I also really do like the mock draft database draft simulator as well as the draft professors draft simulator. I'll definitely be using those throughout as we go. Looking to hit maybe some different approaches each week. A different simulator is going to give us a different board that we can kind of follow, some with trades, some without. These first couple, we're going to start nice and simple. Just talk about some of the needs the Packers have, some different position groups that are stronger in certain places rather than others, and some guys that either I've gotten eyes on for full evaluations, seen them throughout the season, or just know kind of some of the buzz that's around them. I've definitely not seen all the guys that are going to be in the simulator and that even I'm going to pick, but I do have a good handle on them throughout a lot of the college football season and the interactions I've had with other analysts. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get into this with the simulator, get it started up and start the draft. Picking at 52 as it is right now. It'll probably be right around there with our loss. And man, a guy that I really, really like in Caleb Tiernan pops up right away in that number one spot for them. For the Packers, cornerback, in my opinion, is probably the biggest need that we need to address in this offseason, whether it be free agency. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the route. I think the draft is going to be a little bit more of a fruitful venture. With how the board fell right here, let's just go ahead and go over the cornerbacks and see what we have there. Keontae Scott, not super crazy about, especially that high. Chandler Rivers is a lot smaller. Everett, I don't like as much. Julian Neal, I am a fan of. I think that he's got a lot that he can offer. I think he honestly will be a riser throughout this process. And honestly, all three of these guys, Neil Pons and Will Lee, I actually really do like those for kind of that third round value. Scott, I don't really think is going to be in this draft. I'm going to try to avoid guys that I think are going to be returning to school, as we still live in that gray area until the end of the month. Scott's a guy that could take a red shirt from injury that he sustained this year that kept him out pretty much the entire year. I like Scott a lot. I would be more than happy to take him here, but he is also a little bit more of that safety hybrid, something we have a little bit with Bullard already. So I don't necessarily love where the board's at for cornerback right here. I do like it a little bit later. Obviously, we don't have on draft day necessarily that intel, but we can play the game as we want to with a mock draft. Corleone is a guy that I know a lot of people really like here. When you start looking at a guy that is going to be able to be a one tech and be able to be a stuffer. Dominique Orange as well. I could definitely see a world where these two guys, Orange being a lot higher on my board, are in that conversation. I think there's some good value here. Daryl Jackson Jr. as well. Where they have him kind of that third round. I like that too. So I think that there's some conversations there. But ultimately, none of those guys come close to touching Tiernan, who is Probably a top 32 player on my board, top 40 for sure. And he's sitting right here, Rasheed Walker. We don't know what's going to happen with him. And honestly, the way that he's played down the stretch, it doesn't really have me extremely confident. I like Belton and I like Morgan in some of the situations that they've put him in. I don't know if Belton's truly going to be a left tackle, and I think Morgan now has kind of been a little bit better inside. He obviously filled in for Zach Tom as of late at right tackle. But I think if we get a really true left tackle, that would be a huge upgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab Tiernan here, Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern, left tackle there. And we'll see what we have with this next pick at 84. And Julian Neal right there. Really like that. Carter Smith, if we had gone another way, Carter Smith, I would have loved here. Not going to double dip on tackle here, but I think that would be phenomenal value. And truth be told, I really think that the trade-off would have been great. Like I said, if we had a cornerback that was there that we liked. If I'm looking between these two guys, I like Neal better than I like Jackson. I think both of them could be really solid picks here. But we're going to go ahead, made it easy on myself. We're going to grab Julian Neal here. Kind of fell the way that I was hoping to. I obviously love that when that happens. Get to now our fourth round. God, like I said, Xavier Scott. I wish. I don't think Terry Moore is going to be there either. Just calling out some guys that I know and I've kind of seen throughout some conversations that they may or they may not be there. So just kind of looking down here, we got DJ Campbell. I don't hate Jude Bowery. I really like. I think he could be a fun player. Keenan the third there is solid. Let's see what we got for cornerback again. I truthfully think that we could double dip on cornerback and be just fine. Kilgore's more of a safety. I don't like him when you talk about him as a cornerback. I think that if you take a look at the snaps that he's had, when you look at where he's lining up, most of them you can see right here, they're mostly in the slot. He's really not an outside corner. He's going to be that safety. I think that's going to suit him a little bit better. Fourth round's not bad for him. Maybe a little rich for me, but Damani Jackson, I don't mind. I think they're sleeping on him a little bit. But ultimately, I don't know if I really like any of these guys right here. Take a look at the defensive interior players, edge players, see where our board falls there. Jackson, I'm still not sure if he's going to enter the draft. Malachi Lawrence, man, that's a name that would not be bad. Cole Brevard, Devontae Capehart, Max Llewellyn. So there's actually some pretty good value here. I think if we're gonna go and I know the people are kind of clamoring for, hey, let's get a one tech that's really gonna be a space eater. I think Tim Keenan the third might be that guy. It'd be a pretty safe pick here. He's a guy that can kind of come in. He can be that space eater on early downs. He's done it for Bama for 2 years. I don't necessarily see a guy that I really like outside of him in that role. So let's go ahead. Let's pull the trigger on Tim Keenan the third. I don't love that, but I think ultimately it fits a need that the Packers have that a lot of people kind of are talking about early on, that we need to hit that defensive tackle. And Keenan does that really, really well. Don't know if we want to go back to the same well, looking at where some of these guys are a little bit lower on their board. Devontae Capehart's probably going to be one of the only other, big space eaters. Comes in, you can see him here, 315 pounds, 6'5". I think he played that one tech or three tech pretty well. Grayson Halton is going to be more of a three tech. Xavier Harris is a mammoth of a human being. I just don't love some of the character things that follow him. Though he did kind of put some things forward and clean himself up a little bit. Comes in here at 6'8", 330, huge human being. Actually, man, I really don't hate that. I don't hate Capehart. Let's see where the cornerbacks are at. Iggy's right there. I do like that. I think Iggy and the way that he plays the game it's that physicality that we miss. A lot of people, don't like where he's going to be at in terms of that physicality and those penalties. He's had a fair amount on or throughout his collegiate career, but definitely a guy that I think could be someone that is fairly intriguing. Jaden Roberts, if you're starting to look beyond those positions, Jaden Roberts is a decent guard pick right there. Trey Zoon the third as well. Once again, I don't hate hitting tackle again. I think that there is some conversation to be had there with bolstering the line and doing it with guys that can play all those positions. That dried up really quick with the edge group. So let's do this. I'm going to go with Iggy. I'm going to go with David Singh Igbenbosen out of the Ohio State University. Like the value there. I think he's one of the better players that's left on the board as we start to kind of roll into these later round picks. I'm going to try to rapid fire these a little bit more. This is getting to guys that Parker Brailsford's on the board. Man, that might be a no-brainer. It's just kind of, Aiden Fisher. That just kind of cleaning up some of that linebacker, especially depending on what happens with Quay. That's two guys that are really fun to have on there still. I haven't looked at Parker Brailsford again this year. I know over the last 2 years he's been solid. I'm kind of shocked to see him this low on PFF's board, but to each their own. Vincent Anthony Jr. Oh, I like that. God, you got to pick. I think ultimately, let's see here, who we grabbed. We've got two corners, a tackle, and a defensive interior player. Man. This is one of those things I'm torn between. I really do like Vincent Anthony Jr. I think he could be a special player. I really like Aiden Fisher, and I think he's a dude. I really like kind of stocking up that linebacker group. We're gonna go Aiden Fisher. I said I'm gonna shotgun these and go really quick, and I'm just spending a million minutes on this. All right, so now we're starting to get some of the guys that we're looking at, some of those players that ultimately are going to be, I don't want to say a lottery ticket, but what can we squeeze out of a later round gamble? Velling I really like in terms of being a second or a third tight end. Brandon Cleveland's not terrible within there. So Betcher. Cole Payton. I mean, Willis is going to be gone. You get Cole Payton in as a solid developmental backup. He's played really well at North Dakota State this year with his 1 year, which is a little bit of an asterisk, but you don't hate that. I did see VJ Payne down here as well. That dude can knock the socks off someone, add some depth to both the safety and some of those nickel and dime looks. Oh, man. Let's go with Cole Payton. Give us potential developmental quarterback. Like I said, Willis probably going to be gone. VJ Payne's still there. That's going to make it pretty easy. We're going to go with Payne. And then let's round this out with my guy, Jack Velling. We're going to hit him. I think he's a fun player. I think that I've got to look at him again for sure and see, as I'm just scrolling through, what his tape looked like this year. I was higher on him last year. Fernando Carmona's not bad. I think I was, maybe a little bit bullish on him, but I think he's got a lot to offer. I think that he can be a really well-rounded tight end. He's got a ceiling of a tight end too. And, depending on, between Musgrave and Kraft, when their contracts come due, it might be decent to have a guy that can kind of step in and be a little bit of a do-it-all tight end for them in terms of what they're able to do. I think he's a better run blocker than PFF saying, but I'm going to go with Jack Velling here. I like the kid. I think he's got a ton to offer. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that for our first Monday mock. PFF's probably going to tell me this is a shit mock draft, and well, whatever. They can say what they want. Oh, they give me a B. Top 52% for the draft rank for the Packers. So, Ronnie, we got just kind of top bottom: Caleb Tiernan, Julian Neal, Tim Keenan III, Davidson Igbenbosen, Aiden Fisher. That's my guy right there. Cole Payton, VJ Payne, and Jack Velling. The worst pick, according to PFF, was Cole Payton, which that's fair. Maybe it was a little bit early to grab a developmental quarterback, but that's a round 7 pick, so not quite sure what you want there. Best pick was Caleb Tiernan, which I really like Tiernan, and I think we were able to get him there. that would be phenomenal. But as I said, that's going to wrap it up for this Monday mock and this episode. If you guys want to see something different in terms of a simulator that you really like and is set up, you think a little bit more appropriately, if you want to see unique situation with trades, if any of the guys that you saw there as we're going through you would rather have, please comment. Let me know. I'm loving kind of opening conversations with, what's the top position of need? Where do we find a little bit more value in the draft in terms of where the position group swells up? And if you had, someone, like I said, with Julian Neal or Daryl Jackson Jr., one way or the other, let me know in the comments. I'd love to interact and have that conversation and keep it in consideration as we continue to move forward with the Monday Mock Series and with all the draft content. So, as always, please remember to like and subscribe to Cheesehead TV, especially if you're enjoying this and you want to hear more about all things Packer and their draft. We will see you next time.